It has been a very long journey, 5 whole weeks. It has been a beautiful journey for me. I am deeply grateful to all of you for your support and your words of kindness. In writing and preaching these sermons for the past few weeks, I've learned so much about myself, so much about all of you, and so much about this topic of American disconnection that I've been diving into. It's been quite powerful, quite powerful. So I want to return to where we started 5 weeks ago with the quote by James Baldwin that has so deeply influenced my perspective on this subject. He says, quote, "I have always been struck in America by an emotional poverty so bottomless and a terror of human life, of human touch, so deep that virtually no American appears able to achieve any viable, organic connection between his public stance and his private life. This failure of the private life has always had the most devastating effect on American public conduct and on Black-white relations." End quote. Baldwin is teaching us that in order to overcome the pervasive oppression, hatred, and bigotry occurring in America right now, we must begin our change within. The past few weeks, I have been exploring what I believe are several of the key figures in the continued life of American disconnection: perfection, stagnancy, and performance. Today, we will look at the ruler of it all. I was originally going to speak to the fear of conflict as our final step on our journey into American disconnection. But as I have written these sermons and continue to reflect on the subject matter of this arc, I have been reminded over and over again that there is something so much deeper than fear of conflict. What we will be looking at today is the ideology, the fundamental belief behind American disconnection and a failed private life. It is a thing that has slipped into our thoughts in deeper ways than we could ever know. It is in our dreams and subconscious feelings and really everything about who we are. This is the thing that withstands cultural change and social upheaval. It withstands progress and breeds the same ideology with different faces. What is this powerful tool? What is it that has effectively crippled our private lives, making room for the forces of stagnancy, the subtleties of performance, and the rulership of perfectionism to influence us so easily? It is the fear of darkness. When I say darkness, I am not referring to the fear little kids and sometimes adults get when it's nighttime and all the lights are off, although that is one incarnation of it. No, I am referring to the holy darkness, the sacred darkness. The darkness as an energy and a force that lives and breathes in our lives. A force that encompasses a whole set of experiences, emotions, and actions. What do I mean by that? The holy darkness, the sacred darkness, is the home of mystery and the unknown. It encompasses anything that brings you a certain level of discomfort, of fear, or the uneasiness of a new experience. The feeling of being in the dark. It is the subconscious of our minds, the hidden moments in the corners of our souls. It is our dreams and our imaginations. The holy darkness lives in our relationship with the world as well. conflict, anger, sadness, and depression. We also have grief, fear, terror, death. These are all notoriously labeled dark. You may be thinking to yourself that the holy darkness sounds really depressing. It's the place where all the bad stuff about what it means to be human lives. This isn't necessarily true. The darkness is a place where we also experience the best of human living. The mysterious force of vulnerability lives here, along with challenge and forgiveness. Pleasure and ecstasy live in the dark. Loud laughter, play, and silliness live in the dark. The release and the surrender to love at the point of death, literal or figurative, lives in the dark. All of these are good things, but good in a way that is not contained. They are wild, wonderful anarchy as opposed to the controlled emotions of what our country collectively clings to, a country marked by discord. A long time ago, an idea spread across the Western world, an idea that has imprinted on the Western mind and life, one that is living and well to this day. This is the idea that the darkness is the realm of the devil, and it is a thing to be feared, shunned, ignored. Whatever belongs in the darkness was given a label so that it would be cursed for time immemorial. Sin. Anger is a sin, lust a sin, selfishness a sin. And although most people sitting in this room today and more in this country probably don't believe in sin, or at least its use in a traditional Christian and Western sense, it has still left its mark on our minds. It has given us a terror that rages like a river over our collective body. It tells us to fear the darkness. And most importantly, fear the darkness within. Do not trust the holy nature of all that you are. Only trust that which has been deemed good and acceptable. Because of this, we are a society that ignores our shadows and ignores the darkness within. Because of this, hatred is born. And not just any hatred, but the worst kind of all. Hatred of ourselves. Have you ever done something frightening? Something that you were anticipating for a long time and really anxious about, and after it was over, realized that the thing itself was not as scary as you imagined? And that perhaps you made the worst of it so much worse than it actually was. This is the power of human fear. It creates shadows into monsters. The things that go bump in the night become zombies and ghosts and something out to get you. We are experts at elevating the bad. And when we elevate the darkness, we remove it from our lived experience. We push it away. We create space between us and its reality. And where there is space, there is opportunity for our imaginations and fears to sneak in and begin to spin stories. The darkness is a place where you cannot see. Therefore, it is easy to imagine something is there when it is not. So how can this symbolic talk about darkness be applied to this human experience, and particularly to our exploration of disconnection? I believe that our fear of the darkness and everything that resides within it is actively preventing us from becoming whole, from accepting all that we are and all that we experience. And when we do not accept something, we push it away and we turn it into a monster. We make it into the very thing we feared it would be. And then we begin to hide from everything. We disconnect. Suddenly, vulnerability becomes an exposure of our weakness and insecurity. So we hide. Forgiveness becomes a frightening loss of self-control. So we hide. Every challenge becomes a dangerous situation. So we hide. Fearing the darkness means that we turn away from those things that are mysterious and difficult, instead of turning towards them as holy opportunities for joy and wholeness. Embracing the darkness is not just applicable to our personal lived experience. The reality of our fears creates shockwaves across our communities and the world. I have said to you so many times the past few weeks that our internal world affects our external world. Is it then a coincidence that our country has developed a hatred and fear of black and brown bodies, those with darker skin colors? Is it a coincidence that people who live on the streets in the dark corners of our cities and of the collective mind are ignored and ridiculed, considered less than? To embrace our collective darkness would be to seek to understand that which is unknown or mysterious, even if we never truly can. It would be to adopt curiosity and exploration, the willingness to be mistaken. It would be bravery to step into places that feel uncomfortable, where we may be in the wrong. Embracing our collective darkness would be extending compassion towards all realities of our society and culture. But yet again, here we are, in a country that does not teach its people how to do any of that, nor does it provide the spaces. Because we chose to shun, we made our bigotry, our hatred, our ignorance into a roaring monster that we have less and less control of as time goes by. The holy darkness is the womb. It is the place where we are nourished by the Great Mother. It is pain and challenge too. It is the birthing canal, the soil the sprout must push through in order to become a tree. The darkness is where the mysterious force of death lives, this thing that makes life continue. It is those emotions that are frightening in the intensity of their power, those moments in your life you realize you truly have no idea where you are and what you're doing here. It is the times where the pleasure and the laughter are so thunderous that you are incapable of doing anything other than surrender. The darkness is that place where the joy and the pain are interchangeable. Have you ever experienced joy and pain at the same time? Khalil Gibran says, quote, "Your joy is your sorrow unmasked. And the self-same well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. And how else could it be?" Gibran uses the word well. The joy and the sorrow live within the same well. I believe that this is true when we truly embrace our lived experiences, whether they are joyful or painful. We are going to a place so deep within ourselves that nothing else exists except the wholly unknown. This is why I love the darkness personally. It is the place where I feel like the song of the great mystery, the Holy Spirit, is most powerful. I say I love the darkness, and that is perhaps an understatement. I wasn't sure if I was going to share this with you today, but in truth, I am a worshiper of the darkness. Some of you know this already about me, but I identify as a pagan and a witch, specifically a pagan who worships the Dark Mother and the Dark Father. Unfortunately, due to widespread misinformation about the devil, this kind of worship holds great stigma, fear, and misunderstanding. Because of it, I remain quiet about my faith practices. But I want to share these beliefs with you today because my befriending of the darkness was the core part of my journey in reclaiming my private life and rediscovering my connection to myself, others, and the earth. As I became more and more committed to worshiping the darkness, I began to seek a place within myself that was comfortable, stable, and connected in the face of the intensity of death and the intensity of love. I wanted to learn to dive into and face, without hesitation or fear, all of the wholeness of human living. Turns out this is a little harder than it sounds, but I feel blessed by the journey. It has shown me another level of loving and being that I could never have imagined. For me, the first step in embracing the darkness was facing my fear of death. Since I was a child, I had an enormous fear of death and a panic response when I imagined it. I would keep myself awake at night, just thinking about what it was like to be dead. And I would start to have a panic attack and be breathing really hard and sweating. When I was on an airplane, and I did a lot of traveling as a young kid and teenager, I was always convinced that I would die a tragic, horrific death via airplane crash. Do you know what helped me overcome this? It was Kali. Ironically enough, it was Kali, the Hindu goddess of death and destruction. She quieted this fear. She came to me during a time of great upheaval when I was just starting the process of dropping out of college. I don't know if you know about her or if you've seen pictures of her, but Kali is this blue-bodied woman with a necklace of skulls, holding a knife and a disembodied head and standing on top of Shiva, her lover. And her face is probably the most famous. It's notorious. It's this. Except she's got fierce eyes and there's blood dripping down. Lots of blood. Remarkably, as frightening as Kali is, her presence soothed my anxiety around death. I slowly began to embrace her truth, that she existed, and in turn saw that there was another side to Kali that I had not met yet. It was love. Heart-stopping, infinite, unfettered love. I learned that if I embraced the darkness, it would embrace me back. Because ultimately, that is what the darkness truly wants. She wants you to surrender. No fighting or pushing away. Surrender to your anger. Surrender to your grief. Surrender to your pleasure. Surrender to your laughter. To surrender is to embrace. It is to give in to the love and the fear and the pain and everything in between. It is to give yourself, your whole self, to the mystery of being alive and the mystery of dying. If we do not give ourselves, if we run away, then in some strange way we are feeding the shadows with our neglect. If we ignore anger, it festers and becomes more powerful. If we ignore sadness, it slowly creeps its way into our lives until we are consumed. Suddenly, we become our own monsters. Is it worth it then to run away? I believe that the Holy of Many Names made us all that we are for a reason. Just like the earth, every square inch of us, from the decaying and the dying and the creepy crawlies, to the majestic and the beautiful and the blossoming, are necessary for the function and well-being of our ecosystem. Is it not common sense then to worship it all? You may be wondering, what about the light? Well, I have found that the light is the clearest when it is dark. That is why we must embrace both aspects of who we are as human beings. We cannot simply choose one. There is a reason the two exist together in the existence of all things. Death, life, dark, light. They are interchangeable, the same thing, because they make each other, because they need one another, which is why we need all of who you are. Yes, I am saying that we need grumpy old you in the mornings. We need your hurt and anger. We need your mistakes, shortcomings, and even your badness. We need your goofiness and foolishness and playfulness. We need the fullness of your pleasure, your ecstasy, your pain. We need it all. To open ourselves to the bigness of life is to welcome forth the experience of paradox, of being both extraordinarily dark and yet completely filled with light, both angry and suffused with compassion, in grief, yet overcome by gratitude. This is what happens when we dive in. This is what happens when we actively make ourselves whole. My prayer is that these sermons in some way showed you that to live a wild, vibrant life is sacred and world-changing. I believe that each of us have a world within, one rich with self-reflection, compassion, and intuition. I believe that this vibrant world can be fed by the fruits of intimacy and true vulnerable connection, and by the rains of challenge and change. I believe that this world within us is already there, waiting to be cultivated, enlivened by the lives we lead and the choices we make. I believe that forgiving our imperfections is possible. Challenging our stagnancy is possible. Finding true vulnerability in our lives and defeating the performance is possible. And embracing the darkness is possible. Because humans are change makers dancing through life. We are movers and groovers and boogiers. whatever is happening in the world right now, I will never, never stop believing in the sacred beauty and potential of human beings. I will never stop believing that we can make a choice to stop doing things the way they have always been done. I believe in our power to create radical, game-changing transformation. So I ask you today to embrace the vulnerability, embrace the forgiveness, embrace the challenge, and most of all, embrace the mystery of who you are and all that you bring to this life. For it is royal, it is sacred, it is whole. Amen. Blessed be.